Pew pew pew! Hey, what's up, everybody? This is GP here, one half of Train Travel Eat. Of course, the other half is Vanessa, Vegan Beats. She's not here right now. She's actually at work, and this is going to be our first video. It wasn't what I intended, but I haven't been really too meticulous on editing things. But this one I wanted to share with you guys because I've been doing an interesting little experiment with myself over the last month. I've actually been vegan for 4 weeks. Today marks the 4-week and I guess 1 day mark of me being vegan. It's the first time I've ever done this in my life, and I had some interesting findings. We don't have to dive into the reasons why I went vegan for the month, but I wanted to know primarily what would happen if I tried it. Would I lose muscle mass? That was my biggest worry. How would I feel? And also how my performance was. So first, let's dive into my training split, which hasn't changed. I kept that consistent throughout the whole time, just to make sure I could get an accurate assessment of how I felt and how different things were. So my training split right now, and pretty much for this entire year, 2017, has been 2 days of heavy lifting and 2 days of high intensity interval training, maybe in a gym, maybe something CrossFit based, and usually 1 day of some sort of outdoor running type of activity. So that's about 5 on days a week, 2 of which are heavy lifting days. So that's been consistent. Before I started this, I was working at about 2,400 calories a day, maybe somewhere between 2,300 and 2,500, depending if I trained that day or not. And the macros, if you're into that, was about 80 to 100 grams of fat, 220 to 260 grams of carbs, and about 175 grams of protein. I'm actually looking at everything on screen because it's a lot of information. And that's really high protein intake for those of you who don't really track. That's 1 gram per pound of body weight, essentially. I usually float around 78, 79, 80 kilograms. That's what I usually maintain at. And of that, I would have about 2 meat-based meals daily, and the rest would be, I usually have 1 thing of oatmeal with whey protein powder, and whey is, of course, dairy-based, so definitely not vegan. And then sometimes I'd have snacks or a protein shake, and that's usually how I would get my nutrients in for the day. Switching off of that omnivorous diet, I went to vegan-based protein. So that's where I get at least half of my protein daily. And I also changed up the macros. So in addition to just going vegan, I changed up the macros because I wanted to decrease my protein intake. A lot of my friends have very low protein intake for the amount of working out they do. And so I was thinking, if it works for them, it might work for me. So I wanted to try that out. Still keeping the same amount of calories, though. So about 2,500 daily. And I find that just naturally doing that, I almost consistently get about 65 grams of fat, 300 grams of carbs, and 140 to 150 grams of protein in. So that's like about a 20% decrease in protein, which I would like to do because protein powder costs money, meat costs money, and why just consume more protein when you consume more like fun stuff that actually tastes like food instead of protein powder. But that's just me personally. So I wanted to see how all this went down, and how I measured this was actually using the InBody machine, which is that gym machine that some of you might be familiar with. If you work out in Korea, every gym has one. It's the machine that you step on with no socks and you grab the handlebars, and it does something where it gives you all these readouts. But that's going to be the baseline how I measured things, other than anecdotally. And of course, it's not the most accurate measure, but it's the best I got to work with. And this is not the most scientific study. The sample size is 1, me. So without further ado, let's dive into the charts and numbers, and you can see my results. Okay, the first chart we're looking at here now is from July 20th, which is quite a while back before I started this whole thing. And I wanted to use this date because it's probably my best InBody chart that I've ever actually had. And it's also the last one I had access to before I actually even started going vegan, because I actually do this at the elementary school that I work at. Okay, let's take a look here. My body weight for that day, July 20th, was 78.8 kilograms or 173.7 pounds. And of that, 40.3, that's one of the key numbers here, skeletal muscle mass, 40.3 kilograms, which means that my body fat percentage was 10.2%, right? If you're looking at BMI, of course, it's really flawed metric. It says I'm obese a little bit, maybe. Depends on who you ask. But anyway, yeah, 10.2% body fat. That is really great for me personally, right? Jumping forward from our baseline to a few days after starting vegan, I wanted to do it a few days after because the day I got back from Vietnam and Malaysia, that's really a lot of vacationing and a lot of food, of course. So that means that you're going to be bloated and whatnot, and I didn't want to have all that reflected on the scale. So maybe 2 or 3 days after I went vegan, let's see, what day did I go vegan here? Let's check the calendar. I actually went vegan on the 22nd of August, but this InBody is for the 25th. And it says I'm 80.9 kilograms, so a little bit heavier, of course, from vacation, and 40.1 kilograms of skeletal muscle mass, which is almost identical, right? 12.5% body fat. So that's our starting point during this vegan shift in lifestyle. Now, I had a few weeks where I didn't have access to the machine, or I forgot why, but I couldn't get an in-body reading. We're moving forward to September 8th, a few weeks ago. 79.5 kilograms, which is 175.3 pounds. My muscle, 40.0 kilograms, 40 kilograms flat. So just about the same. We've remained consistent on the vegan diet, even though we were doing less protein, still the same training, 11.6% body fat. Body fat goes down a little bit if fat goes down and muscle mass stays the same. We'll move forward a week to last Friday, September 15th, right? 80.2 kilograms and 40.6 kilograms of skeletal muscle mass. So actually, we see almost a little over a pound increase in muscle mass. It could be the error of the machine or whatever. I could be actually putting on muscle with this decreased protein intake. I don't know. 11.1% body fat. So all this has been really inspiring so far, right? And this is the part where I have to tell you that, of course, the machine is very susceptible to things like if you work out before and you get on the machine, it's going to give you a totally different reading than if you just woke up and got onto it. And usually I've heard that the best thing to do, and what I've been doing, is to get on it on an empty stomach, so I don't eat for 4 or 5 hours before I get on it, which usually means the night before. So that's how I've tried to maintain all of this and keep all the variables under control. But let's check this out. Boom! Plot twist right here. Today's date, just exactly 4 weeks after I started going vegan. 80 kilograms, right, which is 176.4 pounds, a little bit lighter than last Friday. But all of a sudden, my muscle mass decreases by 2.5 kilograms, down to 38.1. And therefore, my body fat jumping up to 15.9%. So that's really fishy. Either I lost 5.5 pounds of muscle over 3 days, somehow, magically, without changing any of my training or doing anything ridiculous and damaging to my body, and also shot up 50% body fat from what I was up to 15.9%, or something's very wrong with this reading. These are taken at slightly different times of day, but my activity level and all that stuff I kept under control. I don't really know how to interpret that, but anecdotally, we're going to be moving on to how I actually feel now, moving away from the charts. Anecdotally, my strength has been exactly the same, maybe even a little bit better, but maybe that could just be, technique improvement, things like that. I'm moving the same weight in the gym, and that's been inspiring throughout this whole process, because that's something you work hard to get and you worry about losing the ability to do. So my deadlifts, my overhead press, my squat, my bench press, all that has remained consistent, if not just slightly better. My physique, looking at myself in the mirror, pretty much exactly the same, I would say. I am on creatine right now, so I'm holding a little bit more water, but no difference there either. Energy levels, at the beginning of this transition, the first 2 weeks was hell. I was just totally lethargic, and I couldn't retain any water for the first few days. I had trouble sleeping, and Vanessa told me, of course, she's vegan, told me that it would go away in over 2 weeks. Eventually did. My sleep has returned to normal. But I was expecting my skin to be better. If anything, it's a little bit worse, I think. So that's strange. Going forward, I actually am ending this whole vegan, 100% strict vegan thing after the Spartan race this Saturday. So if you're going to be there, I'll see you there. I don't really miss meat that much. What I do miss is things that contain animal products. Like, I love sweetbreads, and they all have eggs, they all have butter. I miss not thinking about those things. And I'm going to definitely make some changes. I've learned a lot of things. I've learned how to cook, especially without meat. So I've learned how to, dial down on a few of those things. But also, I don't feel the compulsion to stock meat or worry about it anymore. And that's definitely what I'm going to keep going forward. I'm going to try to stay on vegan protein powder. It doesn't taste nearly as good, but it also, to my flavor palette, doesn't taste as chemically. It is slightly more expensive though. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. If you have any questions or comments, leave them, right here on the YouTube video or on the Facebook page where people will actually see them instead of directing them to myself personally. Please do that so people can see them and I don't have to answer the same questions. And, your questions could be a resource for other people. Check out our Facebook because we have that now. Train, Travel, Eat on Facebook. Follow us there, and of course here on YouTube and our Instagram, Train, Travel, Eat More, for all sorts of entertainment and info related to, of course, training, traveling, and eating. GP out.